Okay, to begin with, two short poems. The first is called Tether and Tryst. Oh, this moves. Peeled, fingers spilling, drenched in swift motion. The varnish lick of a bruise, a bite mark, tattoo. Lifting from her crevice, clear light, wrapped, I find you, fervent, unfurling, reaching my shadow. You, sentry, clenching your pilum, hold me in and ask ahead if your exit is informed leaking, loss of feeling flesh, ease. Evaporating, her ocean closes. And this next poem is after Lake Gregory. It's called In a Dinghy on a Lake. This buoy lodges in my throat. My words float there, away with the gulls who too sink, cinched in a plastic yoke. Sifting through my speech, we make vowels into each other's mouths, separating for the sounds. This is the closest I've come with you. And this next poem is inspired very much by Raymond Carver, who's a short story writer. The poem in question is called Balsa Wood. It's called Fixing My Father's Bandsaw. Something's just been said. I stand at the bandsaw. Everything smells of sawdust and burnt wood from the blade on the table saw being mistreated. Leave it, it's broken, he tells me. He leaves, and I open a side panel, then the whole front fascia. I see how the blade moves over a drive wheel and lower tire with tensioners that give the wheels their tilt. I begin moving the saw manually, my finger behind a spoke. I grow confident. I bring the blade closer, then further from me. Too much tension makes the blade jump. He returns with some lumber under his arm. I call him over, calmly. I explain how it all works. He nods once and moves closer. I'm already bracing. I know how heavy his hands are. He clicks the fascia shut, flips the breaker, and rests his foot next to the kill switch. The bandsaw stutters, then shudders under its own drive. Then the sound of steel giving way under tremendous tension. I listen in silence as the drive wheel winds down. I recognize how difficult it is to see that too much tension may break a thing, how small adjustments can bring things, even us, closer or further. This next poem is called The Intern Greenskeeper on the Set of a Miracle Grow Commercial. And a greenskeeper is the on-set position. It's the person who's in charge of any shrubbery, any basically fauna in the frame of the film. So, I take a plot of earth where the boulder density has lowered most, where my strikes are lightest. I work against light over the mountains to the northwest, purpling, then blackening. We're going to grow garlic once we've turned enough, so the sand becomes soil, so I'm told. I ask after a fig tree. He tells me it's behind the enclosure and it's young, so I never noticed, but it's there, growing. By the time a mercury vapor lamp replaces the sky glow, my hands equal his in shade. I wait before cleaning. A bell calls for all of us to eat. We sit under a pop-up. Our chatter is consumed by improving designs as we think of everything we could be building. And this next poem is, again, inspired by Raymond Carver. It's a poem called Cobwebs. This poem is called All Our Legs. Unpacking, my mother finds all my old legs. I find my father's cobwebs with his curse words. I hang cobwebs by the box load on my windows to break the sunlight. The shadows make intricate shapes. They remind me of growing. Mother likes my windows. She is oddly home there. Cobwebs, curse words. I break my mother from unpacking. In the kitchen, we hover over the coffee being brewed. She must climb to get our mugs. I see her slowing over the boxes. When she tires of climbing, my web work will cradle her aging. And these last two poems are songs which are inspired by a recent reading of Ezra Pound. The first is Tree Song, and the epigram reads, "He had a particular pilgrimage to a certain tree," which is lifted from Pound's memoir of Henri Gaudier Jreshka. Singing a winter hymn, I find tree, intrigued. Her reach absorbs my body under the flood of her shadow. Lane, I count her nests and amass a bed of moss, moist with mildew. I sleep, I wake, my beard greens. She teaches me tree speak. I age and have worked swarms of honeycombs into our home, the bees and tree and me. We welcome in the living. A sapling sprouts. The bees keep multiplying. Seasons shift. Diseases swiffen. Tree instructs me on swaling. I ring us with fire. I man buckets. Winds skinny her timber flimsies. I have only my own skin. Even the stones here wear fur. Trees' boughs snag my scalp's overgrowth. Snags now outnumber me. I bore rings from fallen trunks, one for each seedling and bee, and tally the dead against what's left of my living. Tree's panoply, her canopy, its density thinning, shivers. She whispers. I hear her rasp limbs aridly. Now I sing hymns for the living no longer. No one listens. Thistles bloom. And this final poem is called Gaivota's Song, and gaivota is Portuguese for seagull. I steadied my breath and was a seagull at sea. Anglers called at me, gaivota, gaivota, and fed me fish scraps, eyeballs, and gills. I followed a calliope with their boats, beating to still surf, extra reflective with scales. Then, we hadn't decided who led whom to the schools. I scanned their dragnets for waywards. I ate well when I wanted. No man leashed me. My burden was a wingspan. The wind takes my weight anyway. I owed currents nothing. I saw these men from above, pounding the air with their breath and hungered for the sky. I formed with the wind, then I rose. Thank you.